Hello, Natalie.
Hello, Lilou. How are you?
Very well, and I'm excited to do this interview. You wrote this book in American, but we have the French version with a French publisher that is well known here, Mama Edition. They're absolutely fabulous, very hearted people. I love their work. And they have decided to publish your story in France, where you explain your near-death experience. You had an NDE in Iraq as you were working there. You were part of the military, the American militaries, right? You were there since 2006, and this happened in 2007, right?
Yes.
Were you there on a mission?
I was there as a civilian military, working for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So I was managing construction contracts, basically, in one position or another. When I was over there. Yeah.
So what I'm mainly interested with you, and I love interviewing people that had near-death experience, and especially when they can go deeply into the details, because it's like going beyond the veil. It's like learning something. And I particularly love being in person with people that have encountered and have this, because there's energy that goes through you. Like, you're not the same than you were before this explosion, right? What happened?
What happened during my experience, you mean?
So so this happened as your car was bombarded, right? There is a bomb there's an explosion there, and up you went out of your body.
Yeah. We were out visiting some of the construction sites, and a roadside bomb exploded under our truck. And I was in the truck, and then I was not in the truck. And I described this movement from one place, for lack of a better word, to another as blinking, because I didn't move through space to another place. It's just like I was in one place and then I was in another place.
Really fast.
Really fast.
So yeah, you didn't have the experience of slightly going out, seeing your body, and then going into a different dimension?
No, I didn't have that, and I didn't have sort of the classic out-of-body feeling of going through a tunnel or any of that stuff. I think I've had that before in experiences, but I don't remember that in this one.
What do you mean? You had previous experiences? You had previous spiritual experiences? Because from my understanding, you were quite skeptical or irrational.
Oh, well, no, actually, I had a lot of experiences before this. And maybe much more random, and not necessarily taking me somewhere that made sense to me. You know, maybe going out of my body and then coming back in and going, well, what was that about? You know, or remembering lucid dreams that felt like I should understand them, or they felt like they were part of something bigger, but I couldn't necessarily make sense of them. I think a lot of people have experiences like that, and I certainly did. I would
and
say
you were
that
accepting them.
I was accepting of them, absolutely. And I had dreams that happened later, and I had felt spirits around, and I always trusted that. I always believed in that as if it's something to believe in when you have the experience, right? I mean, if you have the experience, why not trust your experience? But I think that I had a certain amount of skepticism. I don't just assume that everything that people experience is supernatural or paranormal. I think that sometimes all of our senses working together can also give us information. And so sometimes it is truly, knowing from the intuition. I think that sometimes it's knowing on a very rational level, a brain working very, very quickly to cohere all that information.
So it's always funny for us from the outside of the army to imagine that working for the American Army and being open to spirituality. Like, oh, really? You were before? This just didn't happen right in Iraq when you had this near-death experience. So, okay, so then you had this near-death... Yeah, sorry.
Well, I think, we have this idea of what the Army is, but the Army is made up of a lot of individuals. And I've actually met a lot of soldiers, a lot of individuals since this experience and since writing this book that say, hey, I had the same thing happen to me. So I think it's not that unusual.
Yeah, it's good to hear. Okay. So then you have this experience. Tell us about it.
So when I blinked out of my body, I blinked to a place where I was standing on kind of a small stage, and there were thousands of beings kind of arrayed all around me, like maybe I was it would look like a stadium. Maybe they were kind of arrayed up like this, and I was downloading information to them, and I interacted with them for a little while, and then I blinked to another environment that I call the deep rest environment, where obviously I had a very deep rest. I also had a version of what people refer to as a life review. And then from there, I blinked to another place that I call the healing environment, in which I actually chose my injuries, and then blinked
the one you
again.
were going to have.
Yeah,
how your body was going to be after the accident, right? Okay.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And then I blinked to another place where it's like I was next to the truck that had been blown up, and we were in the truck, but I was also standing beside it. It's like time had stopped, or we were in between time, and had a talk with some other beings that I knew, friends of mine, and then popped back into my body. So that's kind of the nutshell of what I experienced. And then in the book, I go very deeply into each part of that.
Yeah. I'm very interested about the knowledge that you got there. I've done different near-death experiences, including Eben Alexander, Anita Morgiani, and people like that speak in deep details about this. And some of them say, there's this all-knowing.
Yeah. I think that for me, it was only really noticeable when I left it. When I was in it, I'm like, yes, of course. Of course we know everything, because we're all connected.
Yeah.
How would we not know everything? And so, and yet, where I was, or what I was experiencing, I think, when I say knowing everything, it doesn't mean that there was no movement, or that there was no continued creative exploration. There was still creative exploration going on. So I'm not sure how to explain how you can know everything and be creating something new, but that's kind of how my perception of those environments.
Yeah. And yet you chose to, because it feels good there, right? You don't have the body hurting or nothing, and you're going to get back into this body that just had a big accident. So how do you choose to come back?
Yeah, I chose to come back sure,
no problem. I'll do that.
Deal. Yeah. They that sort of stadium of beings, I communicated to them that I didn't want to go back. I was not going to go back. It didn't interest me anymore. And they kind of proposed, well, what if you went back and did this for us? And I said, oh yeah, sure. Which is kind of how I make decisions often, even as a personality in this lifetime. If something sounds interesting, something that I haven't done before, or something that maybe uses my skills or interests in a new way, then I just say yes, and then deal with the consequences of that yes afterward. And I think I kind of did that. I think that must be kind of a part of my original essence or personality, that that curiosity, or that willingness to explore, jump into something that maybe I should think twice about.
Yeah. But you were clear about what you were going to do, your mission, the tasks that they were going to propose to you. Was it general or was it detailed?
I don't remember most of it.
But you
I remember a
accepted
couple things. I did accept it. I mean, I think that it's not really necessary for me as a personality to remember it. I think that even if I remembered it, I probably wouldn't talk about it because it's mine. And I think that we as human beings are taught or enculturated to compare ourselves with other people. So that if I said, well, my mission is to XYZ, then other people would be going, oh, but my mission is better than that because I'm doing, or what is my mission? They'd somehow be comparing themselves to whatever I'm doing. And whatever I'm doing is mine. And whatever you are doing is yours. They don't have to be compared. They don't need to stand up against each other. They all work cooperatively. And I think that that's what matters. It doesn't matter, I feel like it doesn't matter to anyone else what I'm doing. What matters is that we're all doing something valuable. All of us.
When you say valuable, it's love. We inject love in what we do, or we're really present. We inspire others. I mean, you became after that a writer. The music, the art is in your life, the writing, all that. So it's a very radical change.
Well, I think our idea of what is valuable may also not be what is valuable to the whole self. So it may be if I say to someone that to the whole self, the most valuable thing that I'm doing here is exercising my curiosity and my creativity. That sounds very sort of esoteric to us. It's not a something. It's too
intangible,
big.
Yeah.
Intangible, yeah. And we want something very tangible. We want to say, this is my purpose, to feed the hungry, I mean, whatever it is. So how we as conscious personalities perceive our value may be very, very different from the value that we as whole selves perceive in our lives and in our actions and in our very being here, incarnated through a body. The love part, of course,
yeah.
Makes
could
sense.
We say that we all have something in common, which is to be love and to feel it and to let go of whatever is not experience of that?
Yeah, I mean, we come here to experience this reality as it is, but then we're creative beings, and we are. I think that part of what we have been exploring is a perception of separation. As soon as we believe that we are separate from source, separate from love, separate from each other, and the grass and the earth and the stones or whatever, as soon as we believe that, then we begin to make decisions based on that, and we end up having a valuable experience, but we may not be expressing our highest selves. Whereas if we begin to understand and remember who and what we really are, that we are infinite beings having an experience through this body and through these emotions and through these thoughts, that we're more than those things and that we are related to everything around us, that then we begin to create a whole different kind of experience here. And that then we become the embodied love. I talk about love not as an emotion, but as a state of being. Yeah. We become love.
Yeah. And then a lot of things are possible for this world through this being love. What's the process? Do you have an understanding of the process? I mean, here you went directly to the source and you came back and voila, a new Natalie is born.
Well, I think it's
Because you
not that
felt it.
simple.
You had a little source bath.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I did. And I think in some instances that makes it easier for me, but it doesn't it doesn't mean that I came back and I am now always embodying that. I, I still I still have a personality that I have to negotiate, and
Yeah.
I still get angry. I still get frustrated. I still, I still have the full range of emotions. I still have the same challenges that other people have in my life. It doesn't mean that those things all go away. It means that I approach them in a different way. And I think that for me, I didn't just go there and get this dose, and now I'm always aware of that and always feeling great. I think there are probably some people who have that experience. But for me, I went and I got this dose, and now it all has to be integrated. And for me, I mean, maybe some people are really good at that, but I'm pretty stubborn and kind of not always the brightest chicken in the flock. And and so it takes me a long time to integrate some things.
So you're saying it's increasing instead of degressing, because it could have been less and less feeling this way since,
Well,
as time goes by.
I think it has been less and less, and it takes more and more effort, or it takes attention to maintain that. I'm surrounded by a culture that doesn't necessarily move from that same foundation, and it's hard to maintain something if you are surrounded by everything else that doesn't help maintain that. So I'm not making an excuse for myself necessarily, but I'm saying that I'm not very good at it. I think there are people out there who have reached the point where they are an incarnated version of the whole self. That whole self expresses through them at all times. I think that's possible. I think that's what we are all moving toward. I think it looks different than we may think it looks. We have this idea of what enlightenment means.
Well, and
But
there's
I think
different
it may
level
be
of
very
enlightenment.
different.
Yeah.
Sure, but I think it actually can look very different from what we think. We think, well, then I'll never feel angry, and then I'll never feel frustrated, and then I don't think that's true. I think we still experience the whole gamut of being human. We'll just have a different we have a different
Approach, you
perspective
said, yeah.
From which we accept that experience and process that experience.
Yeah, because it's very much how much we react to something, because we are going to have
Right.
challenges. So your approach is different. So is there a question, or is there something that you tell yourself when you have difficulties or things that come in that are different than how you were doing it before? I mean, is there a question or something that comes back from that period, from that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I will remind myself, it's another. I had an experience when I was in the hospital. I had a lot of pain in this eye. This eye I don't really see out of, and I was an artist. I was like, I want to be able to see out of that eye, and I was feeling sorry for myself one day, lying there in the hospital and thinking,
well, your body was in really bad shape. Let's just rewind a little bit, because you were transported from hospital to hospital. I mean, this was like you're between life and death.
Well, maybe not. Well, some people thought so, yes. I had, my heel was broken. I had a lot of shrapnel in my legs. I had a lot of shrapnel in my right hand, and both forearm bones were broken, shattered actually. And all the bones on the right side of my face were broken. My skull was fractured. There were pieces of my skull missing here. There was shrapnel in both eyes, and this eye had blunt force trauma injuries that eventually led to a retina detachment, and the retina was very tattered. So they did put the retina back on, but these muscles that hold this eye in place also were damaged, so the eyes don't really track together. So I'm essentially blind in this eye. I see kind of double with shadows in this eye. So, so I was lying in the hospital feeling sorry for myself.
Yeah.
and, and just kind of drifting, thinking, and all of a sudden, very clearly in my head, I thought, it really doesn't matter. It's only for 40 more years. And I immediately thought, only 40 more years. And I started laughing because before I got blown up, only 40 more years would have sounded just insane. And yet I understood in that moment, I really felt 40 years is nothing. It's nothing. This lifetime is a very short span. And if something is inconvenient, it's not forever. It doesn't really matter. I, as a whole being, am not injured. And so sometimes I remind myself of that. Doesn't matter. Now it's only another 30 more years. Or I also remind myself that I chose these injuries and I chose this lifetime. I'm not a victim of anything, including myself. There's reasons why I chose this lifetime the way it is. There's reasons why I chose these injuries the way they were and are. So what's the point of dwelling on it or whining about it? You just
might as well save time.
Right. Have fun.
What would source say about the situation right now around the world? Why it's happening? If everything has its reason, why humanity is going through this right now?
Well, what I have been given, and this is, excuse me, this is just what I'm given. I'm sure other people get it another way, but it's fine. We may all be looking at a piece of the elephant, but what I'm given is that humanity as a whole has agreed to, in a sense, rearrange the very structure of this reality in order to provide new potentials for experience within this reality. So, for instance, it may be possible to imagine a world, a peaceful world, a completely peaceful world, no war in the past. And yet it wasn't truly possible to create that because of the organization of energy that holds this reality in the shape that it's in. But there's an agreement by everyone to shift that structure in order to make it possible to explore new things like peace on earth, true peace on earth, or like the majority of people being awake and aware to who and what they really are, and thereby having a different kind of experience embodied in this world, in this communal reality. So the way, part of what happens is that in order to clean out the closet, first you got to open the closet and pull everything out and figure out what you've got, right? You can't, if you don't bring things into the light, you can't get rid of them. So a lot of this stuff that is coming up in the world right now, we say, oh, this is horrible. Well, it's been here for a long time. Now it's really front and center. And how are we going to address it? How are we going to deal with it? How are we going to clean it out?
Are you optimistic?
That's what I've shown.
Are you optimistic?
Sometimes. I mean, I think, you know, on a long-term scale, on the broad scale of the whole self, you know, it's only 40 more years. On that scale, what we're doing is amazing and can be really exciting. On an individual day-to-day level, I think it's very easy to get overwhelmed with what's in front of our faces right now.
So when did the book come out in the US?
It came out in, I think it was 2010.
And you had, you said people came to you and you've seen a shift, you have seen messages going to you, whether from the army or outside. What I mean is that you're happy that this book came out because it's quite courageous. to get it out with the people that you were in this just in this car with, or people that knew you and that you explain all this?
Yeah, I was pretty nervous about putting it out at first. I wrote the book. I thought I'll just write it for myself, just so I remember what happened. And then I thought, well, that turned out pretty good. So maybe I'll see if anybody wants to publish it. But it was a series of anxiety that I had to kind of work my way through. And I was very nervous when it came out, not necessarily for, well, yeah, because of the people that I knew in Iraq, but also just friends who, you know, I had these interests all my life, but I didn't necessarily talk about them with people. And so I thought, well...
It was a coming out.
It was, yeah. And I thought maybe I would lose a lot of friends and things like that, which didn't really happen. I think if people aren't interested in it, they just ignore it, which is fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would like to add to this conversation regarding this topic, or what that opened up for you, or?
I think maybe one of the main things that I thought was important was that our thoughts really do create our reality in a very tangible, physical way. And so, for instance, the more we think about the world as it is as a problem, then the more we contribute to that problem. And that doesn't mean just completely ignore the problems, but if we can lift ourselves to a place where we can see the world as perfect and creative and capable of being more, then we can take ourselves there. So let's start imagining a better world and end up there, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Natalie. What is the title of your book in English?
Application of Impossible Things.
Application of Impossible. Here it's reborn or revivre. It's like to live again. With the again, boom, back. Your experience of death, of near-death experience in Iraq. That's how they put it. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for this delicious interview, and wishing you lots and lots of great things coming your way, and that
thank you.
And to all viewers, that if you have enjoyed this this interview, you can share it and read the book and put it in application in our life, because it's all about that. It's not just living those experiences, then incarnating them and acting in this loving way. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun talking with you.